5,000 killed in action, and Russian troops, 10,000 dead. Moscow disputing all this, blaming us. Russia's deputy ambassador to the United Nations tweeting, quote, "Badness and scaremongering continues. What if we would say that us could seize London the U.S. could seize London in a week and cause 300,000 civilian deaths? All this based on our intelligence sources that we won't disclose. Would it feel right for Americans and Brits? It's as wrong for Russians as Ukrainians." But you know, the Ukrainian military is preparing to defend its homeland, still training for the possibility of a Russian invasion, and the government in Kyiv calling up more than 100,000 new troops to face Putin's threat. Karen Skinner, Fox News foreign policy analyst and professor of international relations at Carnegie Mellon University, is here. So, Karen, what is the resolve of the Ukrainians, and is it enough to fend off or deter Putin from giving the orders?
Taking on your first point, the resolve is very clear. The Ukrainians are, something like 44 million strong. They're committed to their country. They have a lot of war vets in the country, given that they've been in a war of attrition with Russia since 2014. And they are prepared to take up arms and defend themselves to the last man. They've said that repeatedly. Those aren't my words, but it's not enough, as we know. Russia is amassing more and more troops along the border. It's coordinating with Belarus. And just a couple of days ago, Putin met with the leader of China at the Olympics as they plan their broader geopolitical strategy, issuing a communique about the problems of NATO from their point of view and the need for Asia-Pacific security. This is actually a global move on the global chessboard by Putin. Whether he invades or not, he's trying to shift the conversation, shift the narrative, and shift the geopolitical reality about Russia's role in Europe and other parts of the world.
So you're seeing basically Beijing and Moscow now basically joining up against us, against Western interests, trying to form a new world order that dismantles the success and what we've lived under and lived through, defending democracy and independence and human values coming out of World War II.
Yes, and I'm not saying that they're in a love fest, Russia and China, but for a long time, we took comfort in the view that they weren't natural allies. In fact, they had reasons to be adversaries. Those reasons still hold. But what's different about the last few years is that they've been finding mutual interests that gives them mutual advantage against the West. And you're so right, Eric, this idea of a different world order, not based on democracy, sovereignty, freedom, respect for human rights. That's what they want because it plays to their authoritarian advantage and their larger ambitions outside of their own borders. I think we've missed that for a long time. And I've said on air and in writing for a number of years, look at the Shanghai Communication, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's not NATO, it's not the EU, but it is a gathering place for Russia and China to pick up countries from around the world, not just in Europe, but in other parts of the Middle East and Asia, in a broad sphere of influence that plays to their advantage. The Ukraine crisis isn't just about Ukraine. It's about Russia's role in the world, and we better take notice.
What do you think Putin will do? Will he pick off, 1/3 of Ukraine, the Russian-speaking Donbass region, and further, or will he go and basically cut it in half at the Dnieper River? Or will he just sit there, and can he, amassing 130,000 troops surrounding the country, is there any way for him to back away from this and save face?
So every alternative that you have just outlined is being debated right now in Washington and in European capitals. And while Washington, in the last couple of days, has said new intelligence shows that there is, a potential for a, major attack based on troop movements, the coordination with other countries, and so on. at the same time, the White House is saying it does not have authoritative and credible evidence that Putin is about to make a move. Then others say that he won't make a move before the end of the Olympics on February 20th. I think the larger issue is the fact that we are debating what's going on in Putin's head suggests that we don't have a larger strategy for dealing with not just Ukraine, but the very conflicts that we say we care about and the principles that we hold. The Biden administration has made declarative statements about its commitment to democracy. And what does that actually mean? It's a great commitment. I believe in it. Most people do. But what does it mean in detail? And that's what we're not clear about. Does it mean that we have to be a lot more aggressive? So far, what I'm hearing is that we're going to use punishing, unprecedented sanctions against Ukraine. But we're not willing to even do those now. President Zelensky has said, use the sanction lever right now. It seems that we want to wait for Russia to do something. That's not strong deterrence. And I've also been concerned about the fact that even if these are qualitatively different sanctions, the reality is that there are very few times in world history when a determined great power stops its behavior because of threat of sanctions. And in this case, those sanctions could be fairly weak if the Germans don't come along. Now, they have talked aloud about Nord Stream 2 and putting it in a sanction category if Russia does something. But again, it's after the fact.
And the German chancellor coming to the White House to talk about this. Kyron Skinner, on the threat beyond Ukraine, but Russia and China threatening democracies and the world order across the globe. Kyron, thank you. Arthel?
Well, thanks, Kyron. President Biden distancing himself from the defund the police movement as cities across the country struggle to get a handle on rising crime. Up next, former New York City Police Commissioner Ray Kelly weighs in on what needs to be done on the local and federal level to get this crime spree under control.